Hey everyone, it is Lane with Tim's Nation. I am here today to talk to you a little bit about the DeathWatch that I'm bringing against the Grey Knights today. DeathWatch are back, and after getting our index, they gave us another little spicy update by changing the way the Stern Guard work. So not only is DeathWatch back, but DevWatch, the Devastating Wounds DeathWatch, is back as well, although there is a big fat caveat in that that we'll get to in a minute here. But yes, DeathWatch are back, and I'm going to try some of the other detachments that have been released, but I figured that if Devastating Wound DeathWatch is back, DevWatch is back, I better run that once before we get to some other things. I want to try some of the other stuff. Custodes updated the bikes in a big way, and they have that fun Dreadnought detachment, vehicle detachment, so I'm going to give that a try too. Some other things. We get Leagues of Votann this week. As of recording this, I don't have it yet, but they'll get that rules tomorrow. You'll have those rules in front of you by the time we do that. So hopefully we get a fun Votann detachment. But yeah, we're going to do DeathWatch again. They're back, and I'm happy to have them back. I know a lot of you guys are too. We got a lot of great comments, people talking about them, and discovering a few things about the index that I didn't notice right away. So for those of you who are new to the channel, I'm going to talk about the history of the DevWatch. It's something I came up with and developed with DJ, with a lot of practicing and playtesting, and with friend of the channel, Zach. We did a lot of practicing and kind of developed this. The idea that it used to be that Tome of Ectoclades for one turn gave you full rerolls to hit and wound into 2 targets. And if you just took a ton of Devastating Wound guns, you can pop out a ton of Devastating Wound damage into targets, and a bunch of single wound Devastating Wounds just chews through pretty much anything. It gets past armor saves, invuln saves, damage reduction. The only thing it doesn't get past is a feel no pain, but still, just volume gets through there. And the way it worked is that I tried it first with Terminators, because the DeathWatch Terminators could take 3 assault cannons, so you get like 18 devastating wound shots there. Eventually, I got to the point where I settled on Stern Guard, because Stern Guard bolters have devastating wounds. And I'm using the regular Stern Guard bolters, not the combi weapon ones. But the idea being that I throw 10 Stern Guard into a drop pod, drop them in within 12 inches. They were in rapid fire range, so each of their bolters got 3 shots. Plus the heavy bolters in Stern Guard also have devastating wounds. And I would pop off the Tome of Ectoclades for 1 turn, so they would reroll all hits and all wounds into 2 targets. And I would pop off Sustained in that same turn, the Furor Tactics, so they would all get Sustained, rerolling in hits and wounds into 2 targets. And the 90 shots that came out of those 3 Stern Guard squads would often do 25 to 30 devastating wounds in a turn. Not super consistent on a squad-by-squad basis, but when you have 3 of them, and basically, again, as long as they're within 12 inches, each of those squads gets 30 shots. And even the heavy bolter ones are devastating wounds with 2 damage, so it kind of gives you a little extra push there. But yeah, they would kick out 25 to 30 devastating wounds in a single turn. You can only do it 1 turn, because you can only pop Tome of Ectoclades once per game. But the combination of the Sustained and the devastating wounds, plus I'd have some Devastator Centurions and Eradicators dropping in with the Beacon, and they would all benefit from the Sustained in the same turn. So it really was able to do a tremendous amount of damage. Had some success, won a couple RTTs, went 4-1 in a couple GTs. Didn't quite pick up a GT win, which I was hoping to do with them, but it worked pretty well. And by the time we got to the end of the DeathWatch index, before they took it away from us, I had really dialed in the list and was really happy with how it's performing. Now, they took DeathWatch away, but GW deigned to give it back to us, so we received our DeathWatch back. Of course, the Tome of Ectoclades does not work the same anymore. It does not let you reroll wounds, but for some reason, on my birthday of all days, GW released the balanced data slate, which changed Stern Guard. They made it a little more expensive on the points, but now they always reroll wounds into the Oath target. Now, that means DevWatch is back. A devastating wound attack is back. However, there is the caveat that I talked about. Now, previously, the mission tactics in the previous index allowed all Adeptus Astartes units to benefit from either Furor, which was sustained of the whole army, or Malleus, which was lethal in the whole army, or Purgatus, which was 6 to hit or precision for the whole army. All Adeptus Astartes units benefit from that. So, of course, the DeathWatch specific units, the kill teams, the Terminators, and then anything else I had in the list, Stern Guard, Devastator Centurions, Eradicators, whatever it may be, they all benefited from those. Well, for some reason in the new DeathWatch index that they released, mission tactics, it's kind of confusing the way it's worded. Because if you look in one place, it says Adeptus Astartes units benefit from this. But if you look in another place, it says units that have the mission tactics keyword. And in the index, all the DeathWatch units have the mission tactics keyword. So unless for some reason when they put this in the app and they make all Adeptus Astartes units have the mission tactics keyword, then only the DeathWatch units are going to benefit from the sustained and the lethals once per game. That means that the Stern Guard will not benefit from the sustained fire for that turn when they drop in. However, with Tome of Ectoclades, we do get to pick 2 targets. And specifically in Tome of Ectoclades, I double-checked this, both of those targets are considered Oath of Moment targets. So that means the Stern Guard, for that one turn when we have 2 Oath targets, they will reroll wounds into both of those targets. It doesn't say you pick an Oath target and then another target that's something else that you reroll. It says you pick an Oath target and then a second Oath target. Both of those are considered Oath targets. So the Stern Guard will get to reroll wounds into both of those targets. So the advantage of doing this in DeathWatch is really that's the only advantage, is that for one turn we'll have 2 Oath targets. Other than that, they're not going to benefit from the sustained here. So that's kind of a big bummer. I don't know why GW decided to put just a needless restriction on DeathWatch. They are already restricted so much. Restricted in the units we can take. Even though it's Adeptus Astartes, we can't take some of the Adeptus Astartes units. Most of them are not a big deal, but the fact that we can't take scouts kind of hurts. I know that the lore makes sense that you don't have scouts in DeathWatch because they're all veteran Space Marines, but it's still just a penalty towards our competitive play, because having a scout squads, 1 or 2 scout squads, is super strong for early board control, getting out there to score objectives early, and the fact that they up you down you for free. The fact that we don't have those is already a restriction. The fact that the new Oath of Moment gives Space Marines +1 to wound against the Oath target, but we don't get that because we're one of the restricted armies that doesn't get that benefit, thanks GW. The fact that 3 of our strats, the special issue ammo strats, only apply to kill teams is another big restriction. The fact that the way we build kill teams, even though they are better composition now, we have fewer choices that going to building kill teams, is another very big restriction. So I don't know why GW just decides to throttle us, to choke us out and say, nope, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that. I'm still grateful they're back, guys, but I was just very frustrated to see just another restriction piled on DeathWatch. Comparing the detachment rules to, say, Gladius Task Force, which has a similar idea with their doctrines, where you have the 3 doctrines that you activate once per game. They don't put any restrictions on that. It's all Adeptus Astartes units, so I don't know why they put this mission tactics keyword into, or mission tactics ability in there. I don't think it would have been overpowered for DeathWatch to just be able to use it for all Adeptus Astartes units. So anyways, enough of the complaining. Let's get to the fun stuff, which is DevWatch. Now, today's list is really basic. I don't have a lot of units in here. We basically have Stern Guard, Terminators, and Outriders. And I'm going to let you guys guess why I'm bringing the Outriders. Take a minute as we go through the list, and then at the end, after the list, we're going to talk about why we've got Outriders. So here it is. Here's today's list. All right, guys, this is 1,990 points. I think I had to do a lot of work on paper here because we don't have the new DeathWatch list in the app yet. We'll get that in January. I don't know why we can't have that updated now, but yeah, so it's DevWatch, baby. So let's just start with the big thing here. We've got 30 Stern Guard. Stern Guard, let's talk a little bit about them. I am using the Stern Guard bolters, not the combi weapons. The combi weapons are 1 shot apiece, rapid fire 1, with 24-inch range. So when you're within 12 inches, you get 2 shots. They're only ballistic skill 4, though, but they are anti-infantry 4 up and dev wounds. Now, I don't think DeathWatch is going to have an issue dealing with infantry. DeathWatch as an army is really, the kill teams are really strong into basically any kind of infantry, whether it's light, medium, or elite infantry. They have the ability to deal with that. So I wanted to use my Stern Guard in a way that's going to be more useful into harder targets, vehicles, and monsters. So I'm using the DeathWatch, the Stern Guard bolters here. That means each Stern Guard bolter is 2 shots, rapid fire 1. So when we're within 12 inches, we get 3 shots. They're just strength 4, AP 1, 1 damage, but they do have devastating wounds. They're only proccing off on 6s, but we're going to be re-rolling our hits and our wounds because Stern Guard now re-roll all wounds into the Oath target. So each one gets 3 shots when we're within 12 inches, and we are putting them in drop pods, so they're going to hopefully get within 12 inches of some juicy targets. Then, of course, there's 2 heavy bolters for every 10 man here. So for every 5 guys, there's a heavy bolter. We're doing 10-man squad. So each one has 2 heavy bolters. These are Stern Guard heavy bolters. So they're just like regular heavy bolters, that they're 3 shots, ballistic skill 4, heavy, strength 5, AP 1, 2 damage, but they also have devastating wounds too. So every time we get a 6 to wound with the heavy bolters, that's 2 damage dev wounds going right on through. Of course, the other nice thing about the Stern Guard is that they are veterans. So they do get 4 attacks base each. They just have the basic close combat weapons. So strength 4, AP 0, 1 damage. But now that they reroll all wounds into the Oath target, that gets even juicier. And the Sergeant gets a Power Fist, which for some reason is a 4-attack Power Fist. So the Sergeant getting 4 attacks, strength 8, AP 2, 2 damage, hitting on 3s, rerolling hits into the Oath target, and rerolling wounds in the Oath target is really good. I definitely think these guys will also see some good play in Blood Angels now, because that reroll wounds thing is a big deal into the Oath target. They're kind of Oath hogs, but man, they can do some work into them. So yeah, they're now at 200 points for 10. They went up a little bit because they got the better rules. GW did give them a little points bump increase. So it is 200 points for 10. But yeah, these are the Stern Guard. Hopefully they kick out a ton of devastating wounds today. Again, they're not benefiting from the mission tactics, but they will be able to take advantage of when the turn I pop Tome of Ectoclades and be able to target the 2 Oath targets. All right, 10 Stern Guard. Also, we do have some characters. I suppose we ought to talk about the characters a little bit. We do have 1 Terminator captain. I have to have a captain to put the Tome of Ectoclades on, because it must be a captain or a Watchmaster. Now, in this new index, he does not have to be on the table in order to pop it off, so he can be up in reserves, up in Deep Strike, waiting to come in, or if I uppy downy his unit, he can still pop that off. It's kind of a bummer here, because the DeathWatch Terminators now innately reroll their charge rolls, and the Space Marine Terminator Captain, he gives you the rights of battle, so he gets you a free strat on his unit or reduce the cost by 1 CP on his unit. But he also lets his unit reroll charges, so we kind of have a redundancy there that's not really going to help us at all. But I needed to have a captain somewhere, and the fact is that he can give his unit a free strat for the better shooting, the either ignoring cover or extra AP, and or I can use it to uppy downy 2 of these Terminator units, because Terminators do have kill teams now, so he'll be able to use his strat to uppy downy 2 of them. So we have the Terminator Captain. We do have the Bike. And of course he has the enhancement Tome of Ectoclades. We also have the Bike Chaplain. He has the Thief of Secrets. We'll talk about him more in a minute. It buffs his close combat attacks. And then we've got 2. This is the only thing that's not WYSIWYG here. I've got 2 of these. The models are the Phobos lieutenants, but I'm using them as the lieutenants with combi weapons, so they're the lone op ones. I don't know where my lieutenant with combi weapon went, but I'm using 2 of those. I need to have some kind of board control to block out deep strikers, and so they're going to infiltrate, take up a little space, and hopefully block out some space for my drop pods to be able to come in, and my Terminators to come in, because we got a lot that's deep striking today. That's it. So just 4 characters today. Moving on, as we talked about Stern Guard, and then the other big chunk of this list is 3 5-mans of DeathWatch Terminators. The DeathWatch Terminators are back. They improved them in several ways. First of all, they do have 3 heavy weapons, regardless of how big the squad is. So you take a 5-man squad, you get 3 heavy weapons. Yeah, today we're doing all Cyclones. Yes, that's right. You see 9 Cyclone Terminators on the table here today. They're really good at the start of 10th edition, and then they kind of suffered some, and then they never adjusted the points on the DeathWatch Terminators, while they kept lowering the points on regular Space Marine Terminators. But now they did adjust the points. It's only 180 points for 5. They get a bunch of great rules. They do get the kill team keyword, which they didn't have before. That means they can take advantage of the kill team strats, the special issue ammo strats, and the uppy downy 2 units for the cost of 1 CP. The Cyclones are real strong. Each one either gets 2 crack missile shots, so that's 2 shots at strength 9, AP 2, D6 damage, or they can get 2d6 frag shots with blast that are strength 4, AP 0, 1 damage. Obviously going into Grey Knights here, we need the AP, so we'll probably just be doing the crack missiles. But then we also have 2 Terminators on the squad that have Thunderhammer Storm Shield, so they just have the extra wound to keep them alive a little bit longer. Their rules got better. They still have the teleport homer, so I put out those teleport homers at the start of the game, and they rapid ingress for free if they do it within 3 inches of those. Their special rules are when they complete a charge, they make you take a battle shock. If you're Xenos, it's -1 battle shock. And then they gave them just reroll charges. They just gave that, they just put that on their data sheet. So they just reroll charges for free now, which is kind of a big deal, especially when they're deep striking in and going to be 9 inches away. 9-inch charge is pretty hard to make. Still not really reliable with a free reroll, but gets a little bit better. Gives us a little more odds of making those 9-inch charges. So real happy to see them. I just wanted to, essentially spam them today and see how they do. See how if they're worth their points. I think they will be. I think they'll be a good addition to the list. And then we've got some Outriders. So 6-man Outrider squad with an ATV attached. I got a multi-melt on the ATV. Now, we got some changes to the rules for Outriders. They no longer have the 6-inch auto advance, which I was using with Blood Angels with their auto, advance and charge strat, but I don't think they're a real good mix here with DeathWatch, other than for one very specific reason, which we'll get to in a minute. But Outriders now, when they complete a charge, they get +1 strength and +1 damage to their chain swords, to their weapons when they get in there. Now, this applies to anything in the unit, so it applies to the chaplain, it applies to the ATV. The ATV does have 5 attacks, strength 4, AP 0, 1 damage. Of course, when the Outriders charge, it'll be 5 attacks at strength 5, AP 0, 2 damage, which is, a lot more effective than 1 damage. And then, of course, their chainsword attacks are at AP 1. Just bumping them up to strength 5 is going to make a difference, especially when led by the chaplain and they're getting +1 to wound. And 2 damage is really strong. We also do have 1 solo ATV that's going to be going around, hopefully score me a few points and maybe cooking a Grey Knight with a multi-melt on occasion. And then finally, we do have 3 drop pods. Drop pods are going to be carrying those Stern Guard in, get them nice and close, get them with rapid fire range, blasting some stuff. I do really like the drop pods in the current rules, competitive play, currently in the Pry Nexus, because drop pods do have OC2, so they can count for obviously being like behind enemy lines or engaging all fronts. They can do actions, so you can drop them in on an objective and they can cleanse. You can drop them behind enemy lines and I forget the mission. I forget the secondary action that's doing things behind the lines. So I deployed teleport homers. So they can do all sorts of good stuff. And they get a little bit of shooting there, so I guess they can shoot a storm bolter here and there, but that's not really why they're here. They just give me that ability, and a lot of times I can use them to block out space on the board to prevent, to move block my opponent. So they're useful for a lot of things. And of course, being able to drop in turn 1 is a big deal too. They allow you to drop in turn 1, 2, or 3. And then the other thing, of course, is that anything that's embarked in them does not count towards your limits for being in Deep Strike. So I'm going to have all 3 Terminator squads in Deep Strike and all 3 Stern Guards and the drop pods in Deep Strike. So more than half my army there will be in Deep Strike, but because of the drop pods, it does not count towards the limit for Deep Strike. So you're going to have a lot up in the air waiting to come down. So that is the list. So there are 2 things I'm hoping to see today. One, I want to see these Stern Guard drop in from the drop pods and just cook a couple units with a whole bunch of devastating wounds. The nice thing about this, even though they don't benefit from the mission tactics, the fact is that now they always reroll wounds in the Oath targets, so they're still rerolling wounds for the rest of the game. I only have 1 Oath target. Like I said, they're going to kind of be Oath hogs in the sense that they're always going to want to put them into the Oath. I'm always going to want to choose it for them. But that's just because they're going to put out a lot of devastating wounds, especially those 2 damage heavy bolters. They naturally get sustained anyway, so they're going to be sustained. But 2 damage dev wounds are real strong. So I want to see them cook something. The other thing I want to see today is the Chaplain and the Outriders. So what's the new Outrider special rule? Well, when they charge, they get +1 damage. That applies to the Outriders and anybody attached to the units. That also applies to the Chaplain. The Chaplain's Crozius is strength 6, AP 1, 2 damage. So it's going to go up to 3 damage with the Outriders when they charge. But what did I give the Chaplain? I gave him the Thief of Secrets, which gives him +1 strength, +1 AP, and +1 damage. All those are real key because he's only strength 6. Going up to strength 7 is a huge break point when we're going to tougher targets like T12 targets, because he goes from wounding on 6s to wounding on 5s. And then when he's a Chaplain leading a unit, he gets +1 to wound. So then he's wounding. That means he's wounding T's 12 units on 4s. Now, he also gets extra AP, which is a big deal because the Chaplain, for some reason, is only AP 1 with his Crozius in close combat. It's a shame. I don't know why they make it so that the close combat leader only has AP 1 in close combat, but the Thief of Secrets helps us get around that. And then it's +1 damage. So it means on the charge, he will be at flat 4 damage. And once he successfully kills a model, doesn't have to be a unit, just as long as he kills one model himself, that powers up the Thief of Secrets. So for the rest of the game, he's +2 strength, +2 AP, and +2 damage. So when we add that all together, on the charge, the Chaplain with the Outriders will be strength 9, AP 3, flat 5 damage, +1 to wound because he's a Chaplain, meaning that when we go at, say, a Nemesis Dread Knight, which is only toughness 8, that Chaplain will be hitting on 2s. At strength 9 with his +1 to wound, he will be wounding on 2s, and then he will be flat 5 damage. So every failed 4-up invuln that Nemesis, every time he fails a 4-up invuln, he takes 5 damage. So it's very likely, it's very possible. It'd take the dice to be a little bit in my favor. It's very possible that Chaplain could just solo a Nemesis Dread Knight with the flat 5 damage. That's what I want to see today. I want to see Sternguard do the work. I want to see the Chaplain just solo a Nemesis Dread Knight. I want to see the Terminators do some work too. But yeah, so that's the plan for today. I don't think this is an optimized competitive list. I would not take this to a tournament, but I wanted to try out some of this stuff. I wanted to bring the Sternguard back on the channel because they are back. I wanted to try out the Terminator spam, and how could I say no to a flat 5 damage bike Chaplain? So, all right, follow me over to the battle report. We'll see how the army does and see how it performs, and I'll catch you guys there.